Hello and welcome to this Swift and Xcode tutorial. My name's Cal, and in today's tutorial we're going to be building a Tic Tac Toe game, or Noughts and Crosses. This is far and away an original idea when it comes to an idea for a beginner programming project, but I think what makes it such a great beginner programming project is that we all know how it should look, we all know what the end result should be, but there are just so many different ways that you can go about solving this problem. So this is just one solution of how to create a Tic Tac Toe game using Swift and Xcode. Hopefully we learned something, and let's get started. Starting off, we're just going to create a new Swift and Xcode project. Product name is Tic Tac Toe, or Noughts and Crosses, I think if you're from the UK. Interface, Storyboard. Programming language is Swift. Heading into the main storyboard, we're going to create our 3x3 grid. So I'm just going to drag in a vertical stack view. I'm going to set the background color to black, set the distribution to fill equally, and then I'm going to right click and just say aspect ratio, and then we're also going to set it horizontally and vertically in the safe area, as well as giving it equal widths. Now we're going to change our proportional width to 0.9, and we're going to set our aspect ratio to 1:1, so it's a square, so it's the same width and height. And then inside our vertical stack view, we're going to add in a horizontal stack view. We're going to set distribution to fill equally on our horizontal stack view as well as giving it some spacing. And we actually need to give our vertical stack view the same spacing, so we're going to give it 5 and 5, so that's how thick our black lines are going to be. And then we're going to drag in a button, just making sure that it lands inside our horizontal stack view. So you can see the nesting on this left pane here. Cool, so next we want to set our button's background to white. So I'm just going to scroll down and set the background to white. We're going to make our text color black, as well as making the font size 60 and the font style to be heavy. And then we're going to give our button a placeholder, so just a cross. And then I'm just going to click on our button and copy and paste that 2 more times. And then before we copy and paste down our horizontal stack view, I'm just going to remove the titles, and then we're going to copy and paste down our stack view 2 more times. And there you have it. You have a nice 3x3 grid. And obviously the vertical stack view has the black color, but then with the white buttons over the top, created a scaling grid that doesn't require like a background image or anything like that. So this should work on any screen size. So the final thing we're going to add to our layout is a turn label. So I'm just going to drag in a label and give it top space and center horizontally in the safe area. We're going to make the font size a little bigger, as well as changing the text to turn. And then I'm going to copy and paste that label and then just set it just below our turn label. I'm going to make the text a lot bigger, so I'm going to make it heavy and 60, so to match our buttons, and then I'm just going to give it a cross. Cool, and now we're just going to create some outlets. So I'm just going to open up the assistant editor, right click and drag from the cross above view did load. I'm going to give the outlet a name of turn label, and then we're going to right click and drag from each one of our buttons, giving the first one A1 and the second one A2, and then our next row is going to be B1, B2, and the final row would be C1, C2, and C3. And then we're going to right click and drag below our view did load and create an action. And our sender is of type UIButton. And then we're just going to drag from our board tap action. We're just going to drag that onto all of the buttons. So no matter which button is pressed, we're going to run this function. You can double check that all of the connections have been made correctly by hovering over this dot and seeing that they all light up on the storyboard. Cool, so that's it for our layout. We can close off the assistant editor now and head into our viewcontroller.swift file. First thing I'm going to do is declare an enum. We're just going to call it turn with a case of naught and cross. There's absolutely no reason why you couldn't use a boolean or an int or really anything to determine whose turn it is, but I found that using this enum here is the easiest way to do it and sort of the most reader-friendly solution. Cool, so next what we're going to do is just declare a couple of variables. The first one we're going to call first turn, which we're going to initialize to turn cross. And this is just going to keep track of whose turn it is to go first in each game. And then we're going to create another variable also with turn cross, and that's the current turn. That's going to flip-flop each time a tile is placed, and the first turn is going to flip-flopping every time a game ends. Cool, so just below that, we're going to declare a couple of constant strings. So I'm just calling the first one naught and the next one cross. So this is just literally the character that we're going to place. So we've got a O and a capital X. And now below our board tap action, we're going to create a function calling it add to board, which receives sender, so the specific button in our grid that's been tapped. And we're going to say if our sender.title for state normal is equal to nil, so meaning there's nothing in our button's title. Inside that statement, we're going to say if our current turn is equal to turn naught, we're going to set the title to our naught for our state normal. We're going to set current turn equal to turn cross, and our turn label text to cross. And then we basically just need to do the opposite. So we're going to say else if our turn is our cross's turn, we're going to set the title to cross, and set current turn and our turn label both to naught. And now we just need to call from our board tap action, add to board, giving it the sender button. Cool, so if we build and run this now, we can see that you can add a naught or a cross and the turn label is updating correctly. You can't override a naught with a cross or a cross with a naught. Cool, so next we're going to deal with a draw. So we just want, once the board is full, we want to be able to reset the game. Before we do that though, at the bottom of our add to board, we're just going to set sender enabled is equal to false. That's just to remove the animation when you click a button that already has a naught or a cross placed. And then I'm going to create a variable calling it board, which is an array of buttons. It's going to create a function calling it init board. And in here, we're just going to say board append A1, and we're just going to do that for every single one of our buttons. So A1, A2, A3, so on and so forth. Cool, so just below our board tap action, we're going to create a new function, which we're going to call full board, and it is going to return a boolean. And all this function is going to do is check to see if there's an empty space on our board. So we're just going to say for button in board, if the button title for state normal is equal to nil, meaning that you've found an empty space, return false. Otherwise, we're going to return true. And then from our board tab action, we're going to say if the board is full, so if full board is equal to true, we're going to create another function. We're going to call it result alert, which is going to take a title string. And then inside here, we're going to say let AC equal to UI alert controller, just giving it a title of title, message is nil, and our preferred style is action sheet. We're going to say AC add action, giving it a new UI alert action. The title here, we're going to give it reset, and the style is default. And then we're just going to hit enter and create a handler. We're going to create a function calling it reset board, which we're going to call from our handler. So we're just going to say self reset board. And then below that, we're just going to present our alert controller by calling self.present, giving it our alert controller, and animated is true. Cool, so our reset board function should be fairly simple. We just want to set all of the buttons on our Tic Tac Toe board back to nil. So just looping through each of our buttons, so for button in board, button.set title, giving the title nil for our state normal, and then we just want to set enable back to true. So button is enabled is equal to true. So regardless of the result of the game, we want the first turn variable to flip-flop. If the first turn is equal to our Noughts turn, first turn is equal to turn cross, and our turn label.text is equal to cross. And then we're just going to copy and paste down that function, changing it to an else if statement and doing exactly the opposite. So if the turn is the turn cross, first turn is equal to turn naught, and our turn label.text is a naught. And then we're just going to say current turn is equal to first turn. Cool, and now we need to just start this chain off. So if board is full, we just want to return our result alert, giving it a title of draw. Cool, so let's check in to see if that's all working. So I'm just going to keep placing noughts and crosses until there's no more spaces. And we see that alert there, and we hit the reset button, and the board sets back to empty. And then we'll do it again, and just keeping an eye out for the turn label, and it seems to be all working correctly. The final thing we need to do now is create a function calling it check for victory. We're going to call this function before our full board function just to check to see if someone's won tic-tac-toe, meaning that they've got 3 in a row. So I'm just going to create a function calling it check for victory, which receives a string and returns a boolean. I'm going to return false for now. Create another function below that, which is called this symbol, which is going to take a UI button as well as a string calling it symbol, also going to return a boolean. This function is just going to return if the button title for state normal is equal to the symbol. So if we pass in a cross, does the button title have a cross? And if so, return true. So now before we return false, we just want to check for all the different victory conditions. So we're just going to start horizontally. So we're going to say if this symbol A1 and this symbol A2 and this symbol A3, meaning that there's either a naught or a cross on the top row. If this is the case, we're going to return true. And then we just want to do that for each of the horizontal victories. So we're going to do B1, B2, and B3, as well as C1, C2, and C3. And then we just want to copy and paste all 3 of these checks. And we're going to check for a vertical victory. So A1, B1, and C1, A2, B2, and C2, as well as A3, B3, and C3. And then we just need to check for one more victory type, which is the diagonal victories. So there's actually only 2 of these. So we've got A1, B2, and C3, as well as A3, B2, and C1. And now, before our board tap action, we can say if check for victory, giving it a cross. So we're going to check to see if the cross has had a victory. And if so, we're going to return our result alert with a crosses win title. And then below that, we're going to check to see if the naught have won and just changing the title. And we'll quickly implement a little scorecard thing. So I'm just going to create another variable calling it naught score equal to 0. And then below that, crosses score is also equal to 0. And then we're just going to say crosses score plus equal to 1. We actually need to do that before our result alert. And then for our naught victory, we're going to say naught score plus equal to 1. And then in our result alert, we're going to create a little message here, just giving an update on the score. So just saying noughts plus the string of our naught score and crosses plus the string of our crosses score. And then we just need to feed that message into our alert controller's message. And let's build and run this one last time and just check to see if we can get a victory. And there you have it. That's a very simple tic-tac-toe game in Swift and Xcode, or noughts and crosses game. A simple tic-tac-toe game really is a fantastic beginner programming project because there's so many different ways you can solve the same problem. I really had a lot of fun building this one, and I'll catch you guys in the next tutorial.